My name is Scott Galloway. I teach at NYU, and I appreciate your time. Each year at DLD, to kick off the year, I review the predictions from the year previous. This is my 6th year at DLD, and then make some predictions for the following year. I love predictions. Nothing is more certain than the past, nor more uncertain than the future. So you take data, certainty, and then kind of lift off the aircraft carrier and hope your imagination and some logic and some creativity give rise to the wings of the prediction and to go with your instincts. So, revisiting 2018 predictions. I predicted Wayfair would crash. This is a stock in a company that makes no sense. Its customer acquisition costs are greater than any lifetime value, and I was wrong. The Pets.com of our generation may be the Overstock of our generation and survive. I thought that a bunch of brands would launch online marketplaces similar to what Amazon has done. Again, I was wrong. I thought Amazon would acquire Nordstrom or Carrefour. Because of all the scrutiny from the Department of Justice and the FTC, the Big Four aren't making acquisitions. But again, I was wrong. Poland makes first appearance in World Cup final. My family, my wife is German, and my kids are big fans of Bayern Munich and absolutely love soccer, so I pretend to love soccer. And my 11-year-old was 100% convinced this would happen. I still have not forgiven him. We got knocked out in the first round. We were very excited about Lewandowski carrying a young Polish crew to the finals. And I was fortunate enough to have a very generous client take me and my son to the World Cup, where every time we put on a jersey, the team was guaranteed to lose. This is us before the Croatia-England game. So if you want a team to lose, just ask me to wear their jersey. And another prediction that CPG firms would unite to try and fight off voice from Amazon, which I see as the death of brand that takes things including eye-level packaging, design, pricing kind of out of the equation. And I would give this a not yet, but you are seeing a lot of firms partner with anyone but Amazon to try and push back on the great white shark of retail. So CVS, the largest retail pharmacy company in the US, partnering with Microsoft, Kroger partnering with Microsoft. Microsoft and Google have never been less awful to partner with, because now they're no longer the prom queen and the quarterback and have this existential threat called Amazon. Just as the British and the Russians figured out a way to get along when the Panzer tanks rolled into Czechoslovakia and Poland, the Panzer tanks have rolled in, and it's called Amazon. It's strange to say that here. Anyway, 2018 predictions. Disney would be the fifth horseman. I thought Disney had the assets to create a bundle similar to Netflix, offer cruises, access to Star Wars films 7 days early, access to parks on less crowded days, and then incredible content for your family, sports. I was wrong. I think there's still a chance, but they haven't in fact created one big bundle. They're talking about separate bundles, which at this point I don't think will be compelling enough to threaten Netflix. Snap, BuzzFeed, Pinterest, Twitter, acquired. I think this has already happened. It just hasn't been announced. I don't think any of these companies are viable in an Amazon, Google, and Facebook world. Now, this may not seem like a big deal. I've been making this prediction since Amazon was a third of the value of Apple, so we got this right. For a brief moment, Amazon was more valuable than Apple. I think we're headed towards a world, consumers, one of the biggest mistakes that CEOs make and companies make is they think of choice as a good thing. Choice is a bad thing. Consumers don't want more choice. Consumers want fewer choices they can be more confident in. And I think Amazon, with our purchase history and our credit card and an unrivaled fulfillment network, is going to start sending us products before we ask for them. I referred to this as zero-click ordering, predicted 2 years ago, where you get 2 boxes delivered to your house, one with stuff that Amazon believes you want, a second box that's empty, you put the stuff you don't want in the second box, and they begin manicuring it, and before you know it, 90% of your purchases are zero-click to sent to you. It looks like this has happened. They announced this last week that they're going to begin sending you samples. I think this is a first step towards zero-click ordering. The next big thing would be voice. I think we got this right. Ad tech market surrenders to Facebook and Google. Infinitely right. Amazon Media Group revenue surpasses Twitter and Oath. A year ago, very few people were talking about Amazon Media Group. I believe we got this right. The prediction at the beginning of 2018 was that Amazon Media Group would do $4.5 billion in media revenue. Those predictions were wrong. By my estimates, they did $11 billion. Or put another way, Amazon's Media Group did more revenue than Instagram, Twitter, and Snap combined. Think about all the time we spent talking about these three companies as media companies, whereas an e-commerce company is doing more revenue in media. It's the fastest growing media company in the world, over $1 billion now. If these trends continue, within 3 to 5 years, Amazon is going to be the third largest media company in the world. Our other prediction was that Facebook's stock would peak, that all of this controversy represented something much more insidious within the organization in terms of a culture of corruption and denial and insularity, and that would eventually affect the performance. It did not, in fact, affect the performance of the company. There's no evidence the business is decelerating. However, it has hit the stock pretty hard, and the stock did peak and is off dramatically in 2018. Some boring predictions predicted Walmart would become the online leader in grocery despite all the excitement around Amazon and Whole Foods. We actually got that right. Walmart is covering a much greater geography in terms of their click and collect offering in the US. Cryptocurrencies crash. We made this prediction in 2018 and got this one right. M&A activity booms, got that right. Europe bans one of the 4. I think this is starting to happen. I think in Europe, you receive all of the downside of big tech, the weaponization of elections, the job destruction, the erosion in your tax base, the anti-competitive behavior. However, you get a fraction of the upside. There are very few university buildings or hospital wings named after Facebook or Google billionaires in Europe. So as all the major conflicts of the 20th century broke out in continental Europe, I think the war against big tech is again breaking out in continental Europe, and I believe there'll be additional taxation, additional fines, and possibly even forced antitrust action done in sort of a circuitous way through Europe. So then the question becomes, well, how do you break up these guys? There's regulation. We're seeing increasingly more coordination around what to do around data and privacy. You could see a national ban, or we could see, and this is my favorite, I believe that these companies should be broken up. What you might see, and this is a big prediction for 2019, is I think Amazon prophylactically is going to spin Amazon Web Services, AWS. One of the most successful things in technology is the spin of a profitable segment, as we saw with Amazon and eBay. I believe that AWS, on the birthing of the spin, would be one of the 10 most valuable companies in the world. Right now, there's no way for investors to play the cloud in a pure play way. Either have to crawl over a software company with Microsoft, a search company with Google, or an e-commerce company with Amazon. So offering people the leader in cloud, which is right now the most profitable and fastest growing portion of technology in a pure play way, would create an outrageous multiple on revenues and EBITDA. And I think you could have a company that on the spin could be worth somewhere between $500 billion and $600 billion. And then the question becomes, if Amazon is worth 800 now and this company is worth 500, as long as Amazon, with all the incredible assets it has, including their media group, is worth at least 300 post the spin, you have a new construct where shareholders benefit. So ultimately, I think capitalism might break up these companies. Instagram, less of a chance it could spin, but you could see them decide to do it if they felt that the wagons were circling in terms of an antitrust breakup. I believe Instagram is more valuable now, or becoming more valuable than the core Facebook platform. It's been a perfect storm for good things in retail in the US and Europe. Why? Because consumer spending is up, but there's been this opportunistic infection that is called the weak and the old from the herd called Amazon, and we continue to see more supply taken out of the system, so more stores closing every year than opening. So the survivors have a larger pie to fight over. More consumer spending, fewer stores on the supply side. The result is incredible performance of retail stocks over the last 12 months. They've actually outperformed tech. However, this is a sugar high, and we will soon resume our inexorable downward spiral of all things retail, mostly at the hands of Amazon. Amazon has been introducing private label brands, their own brands, to compete with traditional retail. Phase one, only 3 private labels added in 2009 across different categories. 2010 to 2013, they did not introduce any private label brands. They then decided that this was the future, that if they had control 50% of e-commerce and 60% of all e-commerce traffic, that they can decide what brands you buy and control the interface that builds brand equity. 11 private label brands introduced, mostly across apparel. Now we're in the final phase, or the most recent phase, 2017. If you're in the world of retail, especially apparel retail, look what is coming for you from Amazon. 66 new private label brands have been introduced in the last 18 months. In the US, we've seen 8 of the top 10 retailers lose value, some of them as much as 90% over the last 20 years. In Europe, the 10 largest retailers have largely held most of their value. This is about to change. We have a new D-Day in Europe, and it's called A-Day, specifically Amazon. This is the number of distribution centers from the Seattle Giant in 2010. Just 7 years later, because I couldn't find the data in their reporting for 2018, but as of 2017, this is the number of Amazon distribution centers in continental Europe. Get ready. We've gone from 5 to 17 or 22 in Britain, from 3 to 20 in Germany, and from 2 to 11 in France. The biggest news story in 2019 will be big health. Industries are disruptible based on their ability or based on them raising prices faster than inflation without any underlying increase in productivity. So the reason that Facebook and Google created $1 trillion and $500 billion companies respectively is not only because they're outstanding companies, but because there was this industry waiting to be disrupted that had stuck its chin out, that was fat and happy and charging margins that they hadn't really earned. So the question is, what industry is so disruptible that it'll birth new $1 trillion industries? There are 2 that are incredibly disruptible, where the pricing has grown faster than inflation without any underlying increase in productivity. The second most disruptible industry in the world right now, with the most margin ready for someone else to take, is my industry, academia. I teach 160 kids on Monday night. NYU charges them $7,000, or for me in front of a screen, it's approximately $110,000 a night being charged to kids in America, mostly through debt that has become a tax on them, such that they start businesses, getting married, and buying houses later than they should. It's become an incredible drag on our society. However, the most disruptible businesses, academic brands, are very strong. They take centuries to build. The most disruptible business, and the business that will create tremendous shareholder value, most likely in tech, is in fact healthcare. And I think this is the year of big health. You can see that each year they raise their prices dramatically, yet only 1 in 6 people are satisfied with the service they're getting from what has become the most expensive and most inflationary sector of our economy. We're starting to see retail brands that are better at serving the consumer and more consumer-friendly, have better real estate, enter the category in terms of urgent care facilities. We see the corporatization of urgent care. We also see one company already has a certain level of dominance in this industry without being in it, and that is Amazon is beginning to do what they always do, and they're performing Jedi mind tricks and beginning to wreak havoc in an industry before they actually even compete in it. So they put out a press release saying that they are looking at healthcare costs. They don't announce whether that means they're opening a hospital or providing gym memberships for their employees. They just vaguely reference that they're looking at healthcare. And on the opening bell, the industry sheds $31 billion in value the next morning. When you can deny any company in the world of the mother's milk of business, which is access to capital, it means that one entity has become too powerful and the markets are failing. And be clear, the markets are failing. Any consumer company in the world could have its stock taken down 30% in 30 days with 30 press releases from Amazon. We see the stock begin to decline when it starts to even make hints of competing in that industry. Before it's even in that industry, the largest pure-play grocer in America, Kroger, lost a third of its value within 90 days of the announcement that Amazon was buying a retailer 1/11th the size of Kroger's Whole Foods. So the question then becomes, which of the big tech companies will be most successful in healthcare? There's four. Right? Amazon, Apple, Facebook, and Google. Where is the trillion or multi-trillion-dollar opportunity? Who is going to grab the ripest apple in the world right now, and that is the healthcare industry? So what's easiest to do here is to figure out who it's not going to be. It's not going to be Facebook. Nobody's going to tell Facebook they have diabetes or an STD. Or maybe we've already told them. Google is a logical player. I actually think Google is less likely than people think, because if you look at most of their healthcare, it's been sort of more CSR or moonshot type efforts, cure death, that kind of thing. Apple is probably considered the most likely because it has such a great brand, it has the cash flow. I believe the data they are collecting off the Apple Watch has been massively inflated in terms of its actual utility to your healthcare. And the company that has the core competence to go into healthcare, which, by the way, is the ability to lose hundreds of billions of dollars without their investors taking their stock price down, is Amazon. And I believe Amazon is about to become the fastest growing healthcare company in the world. Now, think about the assets they have. They know your body mass index based on the clothes size you order. They know if you exercise. They know the foods you eat now. They even know the pharmaceuticals you order. They know if you're in a monogamous relationship, if you live in a wealthy household, if you have children. All the markers that signal how long you're going to live and how healthy you are. They're also fantastic at the end of the day. Amazon is great at sitting on a data set and looking at all the different businesses and going, this is a bad business. We're not going to go in it directly. We're just going to have a marketplace and let other people compete. And this is a great business, batteries that are cheap to manufacture and high margins, so we're actually going to go into that business. And healthcare is a series of businesses that range from great to awful. Pediatrics is a terrible business. They will outsource that, let pediatricians be on their platforms, and they can give them referrals for 4 to 12% of their top line. Orthopedic surgery is a high-profit business. They will actually probably go into that business and create their owned and operated clinics. So you're going to see a series of outsourced businesses and insourced businesses based on the most robust data set in the world in healthcare, which Amazon will soon have collecting all this data on the 2/3 of households that have a cable pipe of stuff into their house called Amazon Prime. More households in the U.S. have Amazon Prime than voted in the 2016 election, own a gun, or have cable television. This is where I believe we are headed with Amazon and healthcare. Oh, we had some sound here. Do we have it?
Dear Scott, are you aware that Amazon Prime now offers Amazon Health Insurance? We can offer you better coverage for you and your loved ones out a fraction of the price. Say, Alexa, tell me about Amazon Prime Health for more information.
I think Amazon will skim the 10% healthiest households off of from actuarial tables and other insurance companies and be in the insurance business. I think that's where we're going to head. Corporations that add a lot of value in 19 will move into a recurring revenue relationship with their clients, something I refer to as the Rundle. The kind of obvious or gangster Rundle is Amazon Prime. Transactional retail businesses that have to reinvent their business every year, it's like dating. It's expensive and difficult, and the marketplace doesn't like that. The marketplace values those businesses at a multiple of EBITDA. When you can enter into a recurring revenue relationship with your consumers, similar to software, syndicated research, or Amazon Prime, the marketplace values your company at a multiple of revenues, which the marketplace has always done with Amazon as opposed to valuing it at its profits. The majority of companies adding a ton of shareholder value are moving towards this recurring revenue bundle mentality. Even retailers, Restoration Hardware has a membership program. 95% of purchase transactions go through their membership program. As a result, while the revenues are only up 30%, their stock has doubled. If you want your stock to double in 5 years, yet you only see 20 to 30% revenue growth, there's only one thing you can do, and that is figure out a way to build a business model that incents your consumer base to move into a monogamous recurring revenue relationship. I think we're moving towards a series of finite bundles across key consumer categories, not dissimilar to what the airlines have done, such that you become very loyal to one airline network. As an example, Nike could offer or take off the table your fitness and your health offering. Figure out your food when you're out on the road, have a series of ingredient-branded hotels that have better gyms, better or more healthy food, even doctor recommendations based on the fact that you like to think of yourself as a high-performance person. I believe another trend in business is companies going woke, and that is overtly advertising their progressive values. Is it a principled move? Maybe, maybe not, but it's definitely a shareholder-driven move. In the U.S., 70% of our elected officials represent 30% of the population, mostly red states. However, the majority of the income gains have gone to progressive. 70% of high school valedictorians are women. Same-sex couples make $60,000 more per year in their household, and college grads earn over $1 million additional in their lifetime versus their non-college grad peers. Show me a college grad in a same-sex marriage who's a female who was a high school valedictorian. I'm going to show you a Democrat. So you have companies going woke. Nike embraces Colin Kaepernick. This wasn't a principled move. It was a shareholder-driven move. Nike does $35 billion in revenue, $20 billion outside the U.S. Nobody outside the U.S. thinks that America is handling race relations well. And of their $15 billion in the U.S., 2/3 is under the age of 35. People who can afford $140 Flyknit vaporware tennis shoes are Democrats. So as a result, Nike doing this put $1 to $3 billion of business at risk. The people who went out and burnt their Nikes went out and used their Discover card to buy Nikes for the first time. HQ2, or as I refer to it, the shit show circus that is Amazon's HQ2. This was not a contest, it was a con. I want to be clear, this is me boasting. Keep in mind, this is January when the company had announced 20 cities and claimed any of these 20 cities had a chance of being the second headquarters for Amazon.
They're going to be in the metro area of New York or D.C., because that's where a 53-year-old man worth $105 billion wants to spend more time.
You come right out with it and say they're going to the D.C. area.
It's either going to be D.C. or New York. I've been on a dozen public and private company boards. The CEO always cloaks the strategy of the second headquarters in business issues. It only comes down to one thing. The number one reason companies move headquarters is simply where the CEO wants to spend more time.
So if you're a 54-year-old man with $140 billion, are you going to spend 14 weeks a year, much less 14 days in Indianapolis? Do you think Jeff Bezos was ever going to decide to move to Columbus, Ohio? What a shocker. The Bezos have 2 houses within 6.7 miles of their new headquarters. This wasn't a contest, it was a con. It was nothing but gamification and the elegant transfer of wealth from municipal fire, school, and police departments. It reflects poor character and a lack of code on the part of Jeff Bezos and his board. It was brilliant, though. This is how many media hits Apple announced when they were opening a new office. How many hits media hits would Amazon have gotten if they said, we're opening 2 more offices? This is how many hits news on tariffs on China got. And then this is how many media stories the HQ2 contest received. So yesterday, I want to be clear, there's someone attending this conference who's spoken, who I think is a leader, has had a very positive impact on the world, and is someone I admire a great deal. I'm, of course, talking about Bruno Cucinelli. Is Bruno here? I am wearing Bruno Cucinelli head to toe, and I look radiant. I have damaged this brand all over the world. I saw he was here. I thought it'd be funny. My last prediction, and this is my optimistic prediction, that 2019 will be the year of immunities kicking in against kleptocracies and the tyranny of technology that is run unfettered will say and do anything to grow their earnings, despite the fact they are trafficking in content that results in genocide and has weaponized our elections and our democracies. I track every inbound media inquiry I get. I get 140 media inquiries every 3 months. They change. 2 weeks ago it was all about Apple and they missed their earnings. For the last 8 days it's been all about Jeff Bezos. But the most media inquiries I received through 2018 were one question: what can Mark and Cheryl do? What can Mark and Cheryl do? I believe it's very straightforward. I think they can be fired. The head of Nissan was put in jail for expense impropriety. The head of J.Crew is relieved of its duties because he had a dispute with his board. We need to remove Mark Zuckerberg as the CEO, kick him up to chairman, ask Sheryl Sandberg to move on. This is not a crime against humanity. It's not misogyny. They will both be just fine. It is time to turn the page at this company and move on. The people who are at blame here are the board, who are not acting fiduciaries for the Commonwealth. I do not believe if Mark Zuckerberg is removed as CEO, he's going to remove his entire board, or as I call it, go full Cersei on us. You need to free your mind in predictions, so this could happen. This is my outrageous prediction for 19. I promise I'll only go 2 minutes. Mackenzie Bezos marries Sheryl Sandberg. They take their combined $70 billion fortune. They become the largest shareholder in Google, where Mackenzie Bezos runs the voice group so she can kick her ex-husband in the nuts for the next 20 years. Sheryl Sandberg reanimates Google Plus because she's sick of reporting into old white guys to run a social network, and they legally adopt Evan Spiegel. By the way, and I think divorce is a private matter, but when you put out a press release, it becomes public matter. This is the description, according to Jeff Bezos, of their divorce. We see wonderful futures ahead as parents, friends, partners in ventures and projects, and as individuals pursuing ventures and adventures. So if someone has been divorced, I just want to tell everybody that perfectly describes divorce. It's not tearing your family apart, it's a Disney cruise to the Bahamas. My final prediction in 2018 was the world becomes a better place. I was wrong. We look at the Dow Jones Industrial Averages, that's an indicator on society's well-being. It's not. It's an indicator on the wealth of the top 10% who own 80% of the stocks. And what do you know? The top 10% continue to do well. This is a better metric. This is life expectancy. In the U.S. and Europe, for the first time for 3 years running in a non-war period, our life expectancy has declined each of the last 3 years. Why? Because of the explosion in opioid deaths. We also have decided, in what is the strongest economy in the last 30 years, to explode our national debt. What passes for bipartisanship is plain reckless spending. It's as if we met the future and said, screw you, I want mine and I want it now. Fidelity, military service, humility, cooperation. These values seem to have disappeared among our leaders. This was my final prediction last year, and I'm extending it a year. I thought this would be Times Person of the Year in 2018. This is Robert Mueller. I was wrong. I'm extending it a year. I think he will be Times Person of the Year this year. To wrap up, Amazon spins AWS. Big health is going to be the story of 19. Recurring revenue bundles are the only way to grow your revenue. Grow your stock price by 100% when you increase your revenue 20 to 30. Woke is a business strategy. I do believe the immunities are starting to kick in. I'm hopeful it could happen. And then finally, I think 19, it's going to be Mueller time. This next slide is not a joke, a brief plug. I'm writing a book, or I've written a book on happiness called The Algebra of Happiness that comes out in May. If you're wondering how an angry and depressed professor can write a book on happiness, I'd like to inform you that every day I hate my life less and less. My name is Scott Galloway. I teach at NYU, and I appreciate your time.